Hello and welcome to the Sales Exchange podcast, B2B marketing talk for CEOs. When it comes to marketing, we can safely say that people haven't changed, but the technology certainly has. And if we don't adapt, we're going to run into some serious problems. So, if you're a CEO who's involved in marketing, join us as we talk about strategies and tactics needed to generate new business. And I'm your host and founder of Sales Exchange, Nigel Main. Welcome to the latest Sales Exchange podcast, where we talk marketing for investors and directors. And it's not necessarily investors and directors that will do the marketing, but clearly and obviously they have to get involved and understand part of this process in order to drive their businesses forward or decide to invest. Well, joining me today, we have Liz.
Hello.
And we have Dean. Welcome, Dean.
Hello, Nigel. Good to be here.
No face mask. So anyway, before we jump into our kind of three-way discussion, what I wanted to do was to tell our listener exactly why we're doing this today and what the bit of the background is to what we're going to be discussing. We recently published a white paper, and the white paper was basically talking about how technology has affected marketing itself, and there is a complete reliance on marketing technology to do all the work. And we have identified through our research that in reality, the marketing technology is destroying businesses. It might seem a bit of a strange thing to say. Well, how come? How would that be? Bear with me. If we look at, I suppose, my background, I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been there, seen it. I've from the cold calling bit and door knocking to telesales to driving marketing to building marketing plans and structures specifically for B2B. So I know what I'm talking about here, and I've tracked and looked at the growth of marketing technologies. And if you go back to about 2008, which is when they started really to come into the forefront. Circa 2008, there were 150 marketing technology, it's called MarTech, marketing technology platforms available. And included in those like Exact Target, and which became, I think it was Exact Target became Pardot, Eloqua, Marketo, and so on and so on. So since then, since 2008 to now, there's now 8,000 different marketing technologies available. And it's like, wait a second. Sure, really? Well, if there's that many bits of software around, surely it would have sorted out the success of businesses hands down. But no, 500,000 businesses start every year. And here's the absolute crying shame about this. Of those businesses that start, if you've got a pen, write this down. 20% go bust in the first year, 30% go bust in the second year, 50% go bust by the third year, and 70% go bust by the 10th year. That's shocking. I mean, it's just awful. And you think, well, okay, well, wait a second. What about all the, about maybe they're just small little businesses, just pop up and go bust. What about the other businesses that get investment and so on? Oh, really? Well, let's have a look at them then. According to Harvard, 40% go bust. If you get investment, 40% of the businesses that get investment go bust. Of those that are left, 75% never make their investors any money. And then of that group, 95% of businesses that actually do get their investment and continue, 95% never reach the targets that they set out in their business plans. Why is this? I mean, this is awful. There has to be a reason. Now, the thing is that we know people believe that employ a load of salespeople, you'll be away. But that's not true. They start a business, the salespeople, invariably the owners and so on, they go off, sell to their mates, sell to people that they know, sell to their own book, then expect salespeople to go and do the same. And they go, when we get the money, when we get a bit bigger, we're going to get some marketing done. And then they recruit the marketing people and expect the marketing people to actually achieve what they set out to grow the business, make us millionaires, and all that kind of stuff. But it never happens. And here is the absolute crying shame of all of this, which proves what we're going to talk about. Since about 2015, 2014, CMOs, senior marketing people in businesses, have been only keeping their jobs for 18 months. You think, no, you've got to be joking. Their tenure is 18 months. It's not me saying it, it's the press. It's on the internet. It's confirmed. Seth Godin a little while ago said, yeah, that's right, it's 18 months. They keep going for the safe option. Because they promise. They are the only people that come into a business and promise to make miracles, to create miracles. And that's it. Nobody else does. Accountants don't. HR people don't. Salespeople kind of do, but then it's provable because what did you do in your last job? Show me your salary. Show me your pay slips. Prove that you earned that commission. But nobody else. Not IT, not operations, nothing. Nobody promises to create a miracle except the CMO. So the CMO comes along and says, I'm going to turn your world upside down, inside out. I'm going to make you a millionaire. And they never do it. That's the bottom line. They never do it because they keep moving on every 18 months. I had a conversation with a recruitment guy, more than two guys and a woman, separate times, and said, well, it's great. It's all right for you, isn't it? You keep switching them out every 18 months. And all of them went, oh, yeah, I know. Isn't it great? So everybody knows that these people are coming in and failing and moving on. And the job descriptions get longer and longer, created by, no doubt, by lots of recruitment people, which is why they get longer and longer and longer and just totally impossible. And the marketers come along and go, well, we've got to get marketers that have got degrees, that have got SIM qualifications, that have been doing this for SaaS or for big companies and have made them loads of money. There was a great illustration. And it was, who works for whom? How long has someone worked for someone? And you think, well, somebody that's had multiple marketing jobs and everything, they must have such a great depth and breadth of insight to what goes on in marketing. Let's take her on. But don't take him on because he's only had one job for 15 years. And the thing is that the guy that's had the job for 15 years, he's been kept there by the managing director. The other one kept moving on, and that's why. So at the end of the day, this is a fundamental, significant and massive problem. CB Insights, quite a well-known website, did a study, and 10 out of the 20 reasons startups go bust were all marketing related. That's 10 out of half, 50% of them. What else have we got here? Nobody's actually looking at the cause, and it's not the business owner or the managing director's fault. It's not his fault. He's busy shoring up the business because he's not getting any business in from marketing. And so there has to be a better way. There has to be a way. So I think it kind of lends itself to saying if these people are coming in and making promises and then they're getting fired, then what?
And we were talking the other day about how the marketing technology that comes into a business is usually the technology that is favoured by that particular CMO at that time. And they'll come in, they'll introduce either a piece of marketing technology or a company that they've used or favoured in the past. And then they move through the business, and then 12 months down the line, 18 months down the line, they lose their jobs. But they leave behind them a legacy of either software or systems that they've used, and nobody knows what it's been used for. So they're just cycling through these businesses, leaving this trail behind them of software that nobody can access. Nobody knows why it's there. Nobody knows what it's doing.
Or even there's a mechanism in place that people are too frightened to challenge. Well, we paid this money to Google for pay-per-click. You go, why are you doing that? Well, do I have to tell you why we're paying pay-per-click? Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. And they go, well, this is how we get our leads from. And you go, okay, why do you need to use pay-per-click for leads? Well, we've always done it.
Yeah, well, this is where the challenge gets deeper and deeper, because what is marketing? And I think this is where a lot of small businesses or medium-sized businesses in B2B, they get so bogged down with the tactics, i.e. what automation platform, we have to have a website, we've got collateral, we've got pay-per-click, we've got this campaign, that campaign, we've got email, blah. They get so bogged down with all the tactics, they don't actually take a step back and say, well, what was marketing supposed to do in the first place? Or why even have a marketing department? What is the goal of the marketing department? What do you want it to do? And they're like, I don't know. They just bog down with a list of tactics, which they like or don't like, which they agree to, don't agree to. They think, that's good, that's bad.
Yeah.
But what is the bigger plan? What is the bigger strategy? What is marketing supposed to do?
I know.
And I don't think they know that question.
It stuns me. It absolutely stuns me. And of course, I look at this. You mentioned this earlier about the Emperor's New Clothes. It's like, yep. This is really, really is about the Emperor's New Clothes. And to turn around to people to say it doesn't work. You go, well, what do you mean? Your marketers are stitching you up. Whether they're doing it deliberately or not, it doesn't matter. But they are stitching your business up because, trust me, they don't know what they're doing. And you go, Mr. Main, how dare you? How on earth can you turn around and say these marketers don't? Do you know how much I pay them? It's like,
well, that's
like I said,
story.
they're stitching you up. But the thing is that the belief that marketing automation is what is needed. You must. You're nobody if you haven't got marketing automation. So you go, okay, put it in. Pay Marketo, Pardot, Eloqua, anyone, chuck it in.
Yeah,
now make it work. Now make it work.
Again, why have these tools? Like, they're fantastic tools.
But it's because everybody else got them. I used this in my last job. And I used this in the job before that. What do you mean you haven't got marketing automation?
Well, and we've discussed this so many times, but there's so many things that are just accepted.
I know.
Because it's become a norm. But a norm for what? I mean, why did it suddenly become accepted for it to be done that way? Now, it's a bit out there and it's a bit forward, but in my opinion, if marketing's working, people will be phoning you up for your business.
100%.
If they're not knocking your door down to do business with you, then somewhere marketing is not working.
And the thing is, the big problem, I think we've been in a nice way conditioned to do this, because back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, it was cold calling. So the way way business worked was that you'd take on salespeople, you would then get them to go out cold calling. They would find a business, sniff it out, work it out, find a business, phone them up, make the appointment, go and do the appointment, do a demonstration presentation, close the deal, get a check, get it signed, and take the paperwork back to the office, ring the bell, everybody's happy. The guy's a superstar. Right, we want to grow the business, get more salespeople, get them to replicate what we're doing. And they're making mistakes like making the top salesman the manager and so on. But apart from that, big sales team, lots of money, get them all out there across the nation, whichever nation it was. Happy days. Then technology came in. And so they say, okay, we've got email. Try that, see how we get on with that. Spam everyone. And then they bring in marketing automation. And so what we're going to do, because we're ever so clever, we're going to restructure the way sales have been, the way the prospecting part happens. So they put marketing automation in place, put all of the content, whether it's good, bad or indifferent, but you never know, because they'll put all of that behind an email form. So now your prospects can only get hold of your information, your intellectual property, by giving you their email address. But before they can do that, they don't know you exist. So now, that question earlier about, why are you doing pay-per-click? You've sacrificed that free thing called Google search for pay-per-click. Google don't care. They go, if you're mug enough to do it, they do it. So you put all this money into pay-per-click because you've hidden all your content that would be searchable for free anyway. You've hidden it, and now you're paying for people to drive traffic to your site through pay-per-click.
I mean, I think when we were selling sort of 80s and 90s and so on and into the 2000s, it was very much the marketing department was the department that produced the brochures and maybe had a hand in doing the PowerPoint presentations if you had a really good marketing department, that they would prepare the PowerPoint presentation that the salesman would take into his prospect.
Yeah.
But marketing was very much about producing the nice glossy brochures and maybe doing a mail shot.
Yeah.
And that was the sum total, really, I think, of the
And
marketing
they weren't massively
department.
I mean, I will stress here that we are talking B2B. We're not talking B2C. We're talking B2B, business to business, marketing and selling. And the marketing teams now, especially with large organisations, are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you go, why are they getting so big? Well, we've got Mabel is doing marketing automation. We've got somebody else doing analytics. We've got somebody else doing ABM. We've got somebody else doing we've got to have a new person now do analytics for you. You've got different people doing different elements of that whole marketing mix. You've got someone on graphics and someone on copywriting and someone on this and someone on so you've got all these different people. And the reality, going back to what we're saying, is what are we doing marketing for?
Yeah, well,
you've got all these people doing working with all these platforms. In 2008, there were 150 marketing platforms available. In 2008, 12 years later, there are 8,000 different MarTech, marketing automated or marketing-related platforms, SaaS platforms. That says there's a massive market for software. Doesn't mean there's a massive market. There isn't a massive market for productivity, because none of those 8,000 pieces of software has changed one iota the demise of new businesses. The 20, 30, 50, 70, 40, 75, 95, whatever you want to call it, 500,000 businesses starting up every year. It's not changed people going bust. So by definition, by default, it means the software doesn't work.
Well, whether the software works or doesn't work is a bigger question, I think. But I think more to the point is, well, why did they get it in the first place? I mean, it's just a tool, right? Okay, and I think some people get these tools, these technologies, these solutions, for fear of missing out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't want to be left behind because I didn't have it. Yeah. Okay, well, now you got it. What are you going to do? Oh, I don't know. And you made a good point there, Liz, that like go back to the 80s where marketing was kind of, they're responsible for giving the salespeople the collateral they needed. Mm. Oh, you need a glossy brochure, here's a glossy brochure. Oh, you need a fancy deck for your meetings, here's a fancy deck. We need a fancy advert for the newspaper, here's a fancy advert. And then 90s, noughties, it's a case of, well, we could now have a website and we could put that fancy stuff online. Mm. And it just became an extension of, well, let's make that pretty so that the salesperson's got something extra. Oh, now there's social media. Oh, there's another channel. We could make that channel pretty, make that channel pretty. And it got to the point where people were continuing to take up the opportunity to be everywhere, but they missed out on why they were there, if that makes sense. They're just kind of having a presence in all these places.
Yeah.
A bit like, well, I've got to have that technology, I've got to have that tech, I've got to have that solution, not really knowing why they've got it in the first place. And this is the bit that we're trying to interrogate. How do you join up these dots so that it's all useful?
Yeah, and I also think there's the expectation that next piece of software, that next bit of tech is going to be the silver bullet that's going to make all the difference. I mean, I did a bit of a search because I knew about CMOs, and I knew that CMOs were cycling through businesses on a rate of about every 18 months, an average tenure. So I did a general search, about marketing and marketing people. And the general consensus is that marketing roles are more or less the highest turnover roles of any, most people will stay in finance. Probably even most people will stay in sales unless they're really bad at it and they move on. But marketing has a higher turnover of people. Now, I think there's a problem with that. So where you've got the CMOs that come in and introduce software, you've got the people that make that software work. And so in this company, they'll make it work in one way. And then in another company, especially with the big MarTechs, with the big automation softwares, that they'll move to another company, but that'll be done in a slightly different way, but they'll put their 2 pence in. So every system looks just ever so slightly different and is the reporting's slightly different, or the way it's set up is slightly different, or we don't do it that way. It's just like a glorified CRM package that we've got.
I think one of the big, you mentioned about why have we got this? Why have we got this stuff? What's the point? What's marketing supposed to be doing? And the big problem is that marketers don't know. Because on the one hand, within marketing, it's a creative environment. Flowery shirts, doing stuff on whether you're using Illustrator, Photoshop, composite stuff, anything, layout, using InDesign, whatever it is, doesn't matter what you're using. If you're there as a creative, and your role is to make things look pretty and quite cool, and things that your peers say, that is absolutely lovely. That's wonderful. It's such a lovely job on that. Does it sell anything? Oh, no, I don't really know. But it looks really pretty. I love the way you've used those colours. It's like, that's not good enough. We're talking B2B. So the point of marketing is too vague. It's too wishy-washy. Yeah. Instead of saying the point of it is to create a structure within the business that takes people, that kind of gets them a little bit interested, attracts them somehow, just draws them a little bit closer, brings them in, draws them in closer and closer and closer, and takes them down a path to the point where they go, do you know what, I'd like one of you guys to go and have a chat with me.
Yeah.
That's the point.
They walk in the door, let's do business.
And the point of marketing is to attract. That's it. And you go, of your content, what is attractive? And you go, well, no, the managing director likes X, the CFO likes Y, the MD's wife likes Z, and so therefore we know that we're attractive. Okay, let's make this a bit more complex, meaning we've got the technology, let's look at it. Use Google to tell you if it works. What do you mean? Well, Google's going to tell you how long people look at something and how long they spend on it and how quickly they click away. Oh, we can't do that. Why not? Because we've got marketing automation, because we only get traffic through pay-per-click. So you're stuffed.
It's all behind a firewall.
So it goes back again to what Google's sitting there going, okay, we're a $1 trillion company. But we're only a $1 trillion company because everyone jumped on pay-per-click, and yes, it is good, it was clever, and so on. But you had the MarTech people going, oh, what about post-click marketing? What happens after that first click? How do you draw them in? How do you do this, that, and the other? And so they go, all right, okay, well, once they've seen a pay-per-click and they clicked on the pay-per-click banner, it takes them to a landing page. And the landing page has got to have a picture, and it's got to have a main title, and we're talking about this earlier about the points of failure. So you set up a campaign, you go, right, we're going to do pay-per-click to a landing page, fill out a form, give them the download, away we go. It's not complicated, is it? And marketing say, of course not, of course we can do that, we've got the technology. So you go, right, okay, crack on then, boys and girls. So they set up a pay-per-click campaign, get a landing page done, make the form downloadable, or the report, the white paper, or whatever downloadable. So now comes the points of failure. The first thing is, how good is the pay-per-click text on the in blue, and how good is the secondary text in grey or whatever below it. So before anybody even gets to read that text, have you bid enough for that to actually appear on the first page? So your first point of failure is, have you bid enough? Are you paying enough per click? Then you've got, what does it say? Is it compelling enough? Well, if you've bid enough and it's compelling enough, and so does the secondary bit, and they click on it and it takes you to the landing page, have you set your landing page up properly? Have you got a video on there? Well, no, not really, because nobody really wants to put a video on there, because that's another story. So what's your hero picture? What's your title? Have you got bullets and a bit of information? And what about your logos, your social proof that you've sold to other people, and so on? And then you've got your form. How much information do you want on that form? Is it a primary form? Is there a secondary form behind it? But once they fill out that first bit, they've still got a second form to fill out on a progressive form, cascading forms. You've got multiple points of failure just on that landing page alone.
Yep. And at this point, they still haven't seen any content, I beg your pardon.
No.
And there's no marketing qualified lead in sight.
Nothing at all.
Because they've not given you permission to give them anything.
Yeah. And then if they are compelled, if they're going to click on it and they click on it, then you've got the points of failure on the content of the document or whatever it is in itself. Is it properly written? How many pages? Is it educating them, or is it just another sales document? But the biggest problem you're just probably about to jump in and say was the phone call.
Oh, well, that's another story. Well, being the sales guy, I know exactly where that goes.
You know, as soon as that form hits Salesforce, it's redirected to the salesman.
That's right, boys, go.
And he's on the phone.
Yeah, he's on the starting blocks. He's ready on
That's
your
it,
marks.
brilliant.
And if they haven't got the phone number, if it's not part of the form, then they've got to link up with lead forensics, and lead forensics will go, oh, here's a number.
Exactly. And I think we're getting ahead of ourselves here because, like, if we look at modern day B2B, that is exactly it. And you've literally hit the nail on the head with all of the problems. And the problem is that marketing are KPI'd on marketing qualified leads. I'm tripping over my tongue here. And they're not leads. They're effectively useless, and most of it falls out of the funnel before it even gets anywhere good. Now, where I see the challenge, and I can imagine there's a lot of business owners and CEOs and managing directors listening to this going, I don't even know half of what Nigel just said. So, you know, how do I go backwards and sort of work out which bit I do need, which bit I don't need? You know, I get the gist of it. I've heard of it. It's not things I've never heard of, but I don't really understand all parts of the funnel, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And personally, I think that's where the biggest challenge is, which the white paper is trying to address. Because when you're starting up a business, I need a new salesperson, you've got a rough idea what a salesperson should do. You know if they're doing their job, you know if they're pulling their numbers, you know whether to keep them, hire them or fire them. Mm-hmm. Great. Finance person comes along, you know if they can count, you know if they're qualified, you know if all the numbers are stacking up correctly, you know if they're using all the relevant software.
Yeah.
Great, hire, fire, great. And then it's like, right, we need marketing. I'm not convinced everybody really understands what good marketing is. Therefore, when it's a case of, right, you need to get your next CMO in, well, what criteria are you basing it on?
Oh, no. It's shocking.
And if you don't know the criteria, and, you know, it's unfortunate if it's not your area, you know, let's face it, a lot of business owners, you know, they're very forward, they're action-oriented, they're aggressive with their goals, ambitious, and they're the people that make business happen. Like, business wouldn't happen without these people. They're not in the same world as marketing and marketers often, yet it's their responsibility to find a good marketer.
It's a real
shame. How would they do that if it's not their world? And I think that is the biggest problem. And I think it's the only reason that the tenure is 18 months. It's because that's how long it takes them to try and work out, well, can they do the job? Can't they do the job? I don't know.
I saw this example. So you've got, call her Jane. Jane has worked with multiple different companies, different jobs, different similar roles, all marketing related. Works with let's call it 10 different companies over the past 15 years. And the argument by the hiring people is, wow, look at that experience. Worked with all those different companies. That's amazing. As opposed to Steve, who worked with one company for 15 years. Wow. Who wants Steve? Steve's he's done the same thing, you know, for 15. She must be better. The trouble is, you look at it and go, well, actually, Steve was held on to by the managing director because he kept making it happen month after year after year. Whereas Jane, on the other hand, she promised the earth but had to keep being moved on. They couldn't say that they fired her because she was no good, but she had to keep moving on. And the excuse was, I fulfilled what I needed to do. Time to move on to a new challenge. I sorted out that. Really. And the trouble is the fact that CMOs are being moved on every 18 months globally, and everybody knows about it, says that there's a fundamental problem that the managing directors, the CEOs, they're taking the hit. They're the ones, the entrepreneurs. They're the ones that have got everything on the line to make this happen. CMO hasn't. They're just an employee.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they've got the skin in the game.
They ain't got no skin in the game. So they're just an employee. So they'll say and do anything to keep their job. Whereas the managing director's going, okay, I need this to work. The trouble is the managing director has to know.
Yeah, this is the point I was
And this
getting
is
at.
a fundamental problem, is that oftentimes the CEO will go, I know how this game works. I've been selling for 20 years. Get them out there, get them on the phone, get them cold calling, get it happening. None of this marketing malarkey. I know how it's to be done. It's like, well, actually, it's moved on. And that's not how it's done now, because now trying to make connections through cold calling, 200 to 1 shot. Complete and utter waste of someone's time. And if you want to, you would never dream of having a salesperson that would go and split test his appointments. Right, I'm going to do this appointment this way, see what happens. And I'm going to do this next appointment that way and see which one is received best. And then I'll move on from there. Never. Oh, my goodness, I've got an appointment. They go in there terrified, pleading and hoping they're going to get a deal and go and close it. They're never going to test it.
Oh, you're not going to experiment, are you?
No.
You're not going to go home afterwards and go, oh, you failed in your pitch. No, I didn't. I proved the way that a pitch won't work. Oh, that's not going to keep you a job, is it? I mean, you can't use that in sales.
Why haven't you hit target? Well, I was testing different ways of closing. It didn't work.
I think I do think you made a really interesting point, though, and I think this is why, what we do at Sales Exchange is a little bit different to what other companies might do, other marketing companies might do. I think a lot of managing directors accept that they don't have the skills in HR, so they bring an HR professional in because you don't want to get tangled up with any employee disputes or fall foul of any of those sort of rules or whatever. You probably wouldn't do the accounts because that's messing with HMRC and Companies House and the VAT man,
Yeah.
so you definitely don't want to fall foul of that. Salesman, well, the chances are the reason he's in business in the first place was because he was successful at selling, and so he started his own business and therefore he is selling his product. I think the one area of the business where a lot of managing directors either feel they have to dabble in it or do dabble in it because everybody's a marketer is the marketing department. I mean, I work
And because marketers keep failing.
Yeah,
they don't deliver. They promise, but
so
they don't
I think
deliver.
I think it's a double-edged thing because
Yeah.
I work for a company where the finance director, who fancied himself as a bit of a creative, like photography, he could draw and whatever. If anything happened in the marketing department, he wanted to be in there. He wanted to look at it. He wanted to look at the brochures that we were producing and add in his 2 pence. And it's like, you finance. I mean, I accept that you might have an interest, but how valid is your opinion here? And sometimes, you'd have an opinion say, I don't think that works. But I do think, we've identified a problem that is the fact that managing directors get involved because the marketing isn't performing, but they don't want to be involved and therefore can make mistakes by just taking on the same types of people, looking at LinkedIn. What does that job description say? Well, that's pretty much what we want to do. Cut and paste it, use that for our job description, put it out there. We're bound to get somebody because look at that list. That list is like everything you can imagine runs to like 4 pages of A4. And of course, the marketing people don't achieve their, they promise it all and don't do it. So I actually think it's one feeds into the other. And I also think one of the most important things is that managing directors or people in the business don't understand that marketing is fundamental to the customer journey. And by that I mean that, we've looked at the statistic that 70% of the decision is made before they even come to you, before they even approach you as a business.
Yeah.
And so it is fundamental to the customer journey, because if they are looking at you and they're interested, or they're looking at a product or a service, they want to see and they want that opportunity to evaluate you as a business before they make that transaction. You wouldn't have gone into an appointment with a prospect in the 1990s and they said, well, have you got a brochure on it? No, you have to pay me for the brochure. We have to transact something here,
Yeah.
which is what we're asking them to do by asking for their email, because the email address and the phone number is like, once you get that phone number, you've really got something you can work with. Or even an email can be ignored, but a phone number is like, I can ring him.
That's what I was saying before about the pay-per-click. Right from that mentality, you are forcing a sales process on someone. They've got to buy into the pay-per-click title, buy into the landing page title and what's on there, buy into, if you want this, you're going to have to do this transaction to give us your email. You're forcing them to buy. And like I was saying before, Google's sitting there going, you can have all this for free. Just make it available. No company would ever have a problem with the salesman getting in his car or travelling from A to B and spending 2 hours with the customer. But you won't give them a brochure. You'll invest all that money for their, and to do a 2-hour meeting is half a day minimum, because you've got to get there, you've got to get back. So it's half a day of his salary just to have a chat.
Yeah.
And you no problem at all. But to make that one document freely available to a larger number of people, you won't do it. Rather, your marketing department won't do it, because what they're looking for is a KPI to wave a flag to say, look, we're not crap. It's the sales department which are.
And this is exactly where marketing and sales fall out with each other so much, because marketing are there going, well, we fulfilled our end of the bargain. We gave you an email or a phone number, therefore we've given you a lead. If you can't close it, you can't do sales. And then sales are saying, this isn't a lead. Look, this isn't what you think it is. You can't do marketing.
Yeah.
And then the business owner sat in the middle going, right, I've got a couple of school kids squabbling here, and I don't really know which one's right and which one's wrong. And going back to the hiring thing, I think marketing's a bit of an intangible in some ways, and it's expanded and evolved so much in the last 10 to 15 years that's why I kind of started early on. Well, what is marketing? Because when you first say it, it's like, don't treat me like a numpty dean. I know what marketing is, but it's changed.
Yeah,
it's
massively.
changed so much, and we can't just assume that everyone's got the same understanding of what it is or the same explanation for what it is, because we don't. You ask 10 people in a row what marketing is, you get 10 different answers. Well, if we're also smart and also switched on, why do we all think differently?
Yeah.
And it's not that we're wrong to think differently, it's because that's how expansive marketing is now, and that's how much we really have to clarify it. So before we come up with the technologies, the solutions, the website, or whatever the tactic is, we have to think, right, before we start this project, what do we want it to do?
The thing is,
what's it supposed to achieve?
If the managing director, as a conductor of his orchestra, says, you're in marketing, you attract them. A bit like a honeypot. You are there, you attract them, and you close them. Which means if we've got lots of people doing the work of attraction, now prove to me you can measure. I just want you to prove that you can measure attraction. And so I want them to come in through a path and show how you take them down a path. And then when we're right the way towards the end, matey boy over here in sales, go and get the paperwork signed. There's nothing for you to do. Just get it signed. Go and do as you're told. I expect you, we've got all this activity happening. You can go and get it closed and signed and do that. We've got enough work for you to do 4 a day. That's it.
Can I just ask a quick question here? Because when did the terminology of marketing qualified lead and sales qualified lead become a thing? Is this since marketing automation has been out there? And the only reason
I think so.
And the only reason I ask this, because I just wonder whether one of the problems is that we've made marketing, marketing is quite a subjective thing, whether you're on the receiving end of it, as in you're looking at a piece of marketing, because it's quite a subjective thing. You look at something, you like it, you don't like it. But we've made it more objective. And by saying we have to measure this, and I understand about measurement, because they say if you can't manage it if you can't measure it, and I get that. But by saying marketing qualified lead and sales qualified lead, have we now just made marketing, by saying, well, we've got this KPI for marketing. So the only way you can do that is by pushing it into a marketing automation platform. So you can say, we've got and waive this marketing qualified lead, because it just doesn't seem, to me, I'm not quite sure whether I'm articulating it right. But
no, I think you are.
But I'm not kind of, marketing qualified lead to me just says, we put something out there and somebody clicked on it. And that's it. And that's the extent of it. Whereas marketing is much bigger than that. It's much broader and transcends the whole business in my view, from the first interaction to even what your invoices look like. If you look at customer experience, customer journey. But I just think by defining it as sales, as a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead, it's just really we should just have a lead. And a lead should be something that we have and we recognise it, and we can say, this person has expressed an interest in our product and is ready to talk to somebody. Yeah. But by distinguishing the two, we've fueled that.
The thing is,
we fueled that kind of that animosity or hostility or whatever between sales and marketing.
If you're a managing director, and you've had all these different people come and work for you in this department called marketing, and they've convinced you, along with lots of other people, you've got to spend all this money. So you add up all your monthly costs between sales and marketing. So you've got your Salesforce costs, you've got your Discover org costs, you've got your which is the ABM type stuff. You've got demand-based cost, which is ABM, and Discover org is like lead forensics, that kind of thing. So, or ranking used to be. So you've got all these different costs. You've got marketing automation costs. You've got just a raft of apps that can integrate with marketing automation. So you're outputting, it costs you 10 grand a month, for argument's sake, 5 to 10 grand a month. And you're sitting there going, I'm busy every day. I work at the weekends. You lot have told me to spend all this money, which I'm doing, and you haven't moved the needle. That's the bottom line. You have not moved the needle. If I look back over the past 10 years, I've had a different CMO every 18 months, 2 years or less. And everybody else says the same thing. You're all bloody useless as far as I'm concerned. So where do they go from here? How does a managing director measure his business against a backdrop of people all telling him the same thing? Yeah. But the information that's being told, that's being hawked around, absolute, not just implicit, full well it's wrong. Businesses go bust, marketing doesn't work, salespeople are expected to get on the phone and find their own business and can never rely on marketing. And I say fortunately, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it if we didn't have an answer. But at the end of the day, it's not just an answer and come and buy our special box. It's not about that. It's like saying it's time to get the marketing people to put their money where their mouth is. They've got to map out the initial attraction, a bit more engagement, and a process that keeps people connected with the business through a path, an experience that when they get to a certain point in that experience, they go, we love you, we want to buy from you. What have we got to do to get it?
Because we know what you think, we know what your approach is to business, we know what your approach is to a market. You've
helped me. Yeah. You've helped me. Yeah. We've got a problem. You've helped me. You've explained it to me. I can listen to you or watch you, or I can read about you. So I can read your documents, watch your videos, and listen to your podcasts when it suits me. And I can tell my colleagues to do the same. And you've explained it in good enough detail. We've listened to everything you've got. We'll have it.
Yeah. Well, I think Liz explained it really clearly. Like, a lead is very clear. It's someone expressing interest, and I would like more information, and they get in touch to say, I am interested in your product, solution, whatever it is. A lot of the KPIs, I feel, and maybe this is a controversial opinion, but they're kind of born out of job justification.
Absolutely.
They're purely there to stop people getting sacked.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this metric of marketing qualified lead, let's face it, and maybe it's a bit brutal and it's a bit harsh. It means absolutely zero.
Yeah.
But it's just a point that people can take to a meeting and say, well, don't sack me because I got you 10 of these last week.
Yeah.
And everyone's going, what? And you're trying to work out how valuable it is. Well, the truth is, it's not a lead. It's not a lead, okay? Let's just get that clear. Like,
I can imagine all these people in marketing listening to this going, oh crap! We've been found out, or worse.
Maybe that's a bit of a sledgehammer. So sorry, guys, but it's not a lead.
Or worse, it's they're right, but that is what we're doing. I didn't realise we were that bad. I've just been going through the motions every week.
I just had a little image because years ago I used to sell voice recording, and I used to get lots of leads because we were only one of like 2 or 3 companies in the UK that did voice recording, and I used to get them through distribution and the reseller of the dealer channel. But if I now kind of sort of 20 years on, sort of think that a lead now would be somebody walking past the office and looking in through the window, and saying, "Oh, that's quite interesting," and then walking on by, and then somebody saying to me, "Somebody looked in through the window. You need to contact this person straight away because they're interested." No, all they did was they were walking from the bakery. They only just walked past the window, and that's the way I sort of see, in some ways, the marketing qualified leads, because it's
you said earlier about 70% of the research and process and everything else is done before a salesperson is invited in. So it means that businesses are able to find out what they need to find out before you get to that point. And I think you mentioned this before as well, that so once a company has got to that 70% completion, when they invite somebody else, they already know who they're going to buy from. The only reason they're inviting you in is to get a comparison, and then they'll justify why they wanted to buy the first one and the other one in the first place. So it's very difficult, but because the marketers are terrified of missing out on KPIs, they're not allowing this to happen, and this is what the COVID lockdown. I'm not going to get onto it. I promise. I'm not going to say a word. I'm just going to say that since this has happened, this has presented businesses, managing directors, with a dilemma, and it's, how do we keep going? If our marketing, which was crap in the first place, is not actually hitting the mark, because we've got sweet FA. We got nothing. It's just pay per click. We've got no exposure out there. So if our marketing's no good now anyway, and the way that we were getting our business was forcing the salespeople to go and cold call, and that was already 200 to 1. Now nobody's at the office. Everybody's working from home, and the only way you can cold call them is if you've got their mobile number, which nobody has, because you're trying to phone the main office number.
And even if you do have it, the chances of them actually answering it. Like, I don't recognise that number. Oh, I'll just give it a shot, see who it is. That doesn't happen, does it? Unknown number. Oh, yeah, must be for me.
And so the whole premise as it stands now is, now you're going to have to work out what happens next. I mean, next could be next year, but what's going to happen next? If your mechanism has been stopped from working, whilst you kind of accepted that this is how you got business, you know how to get this is how you had to get business, and rather than dismiss the marketing team, you took on a chief growth officer to whip the salespeople into shape, and you could hope and pray that the CRO or chief revenue officer actually knew enough about marketing to put the marketers in their place, which they never do anyway because they all came from a sales background. Then where are you? You're kind of at the mercy of whatever the government's going to give out, instead of saying, well, okay, fair enough, time to change. And this is what our business is going to look like. We're going to produce content. we're going to communicate with people. We're going to give them every single thing they need and make ourselves as attractive as we possibly can to draw them to us.
Yeah, and I think this is the key thing. So, like, go back to the 80s idea of collateral to support the salesperson, to support the salesperson's lead generation.
Yeah.
Now I think what we really need to get into the mindset of is lead generation should start to go back to marketing.
Yeah.
And I think that's taking people quite a big mental shift, because if you go back to the marketing qualified lead, what everyone's used to, it's like, well, that's not a lead, and marketing aren't really responsible for lead gen. It's still the salesperson who's responsible for lead gen in a lot of organisations, and I think they're coming to the point where they're hitting the brick wall, and it's like, well, let's get more salespeople, let's get another salesperson, let's just get rid of this salesperson, get another salesperson in. Oh, let's go to the black book. Well, that's another conversation entirely. It's a case of, well, maybe all of our salespeople have run out of contacts. Let's get someone else who's big in the industry with more contacts. And that's where it's... But we need to get rid of that mindset, I believe. Salespeople will always find their own opportunities. They'll always find their own deals. But we can't rely on that. Yeah. I think a business, if they want to scale, marketing needs to get in on the active lead generation and take some responsibility for it. So going back to the old-fashioned quote of, don't tell me you like the advert, tell me you want to buy the product.
Yeah.
And that's what we want from marketing now. It's not a case of, oh, that's nice, oh, that's pretty, oh, I like that.
Well,
don't tell me you like it, tell me you want to buy the product.
I mean, if we look at lots of companies constantly, and the most popular thing that we see are blogs that have got about 4 paragraphs, give or take. That's it, nothing else. Stock photo, 4 paragraphs, that's it. And that constitutes as being content.
But again, it's why is it there? Again, a lot of people...
No, what I'm getting at is that you say about getting marketing in on it. Marketing don't know what they're doing in the first place.
Exactly.
So they're going, oh, well, we've got someone who writes our content. And you go, but what are you writing? Well, here it is. There's loads of it. We've got page after page. There's loads of stuff that we got on there. You go, okay, Mr. Google, how many people clicked on it? None. 1.
It's like,
2.
what is the criteria of a good blog in your company?
They're in nothing. They're in France. They're in Indonesia. They're in Australia. But you haven't got offices in France, Indonesia, and Australia. So can we be a bit more clear about the value of that blog? So you want people in the UK. Where? Who? How long? What? There's nothing. There's no substance to the blog in the first place. And so people have absolutely no idea of how to structure their content in order to draw people in. And we've done this diagram. It's like you've got general, which is general stuff. It could be Christmas jumpers, could be a charity event, a business event, anything, doesn't matter. But it's not important. It's not searchable. Nobody's going to be interested in it except a select few people, but you put it on there to show that you're active. Then you've got secondary content, which is your press releases, your genuine news. And that's picked up, if you've got the right, as long as you've got the right, I think the right sitemap, that's picked up by the news sites, if it's relevant. And then you've got your primary, which is long form stuff. And it has to be educational, thought leadership stuff. And then so your secondary links to your primary content links to your product, and your product information links to a call to action that says get in touch with us. But you've got to be at a point where you're doing everything you possibly can to educate your audience, not hide everything from your audience in the hope that they might show some kind of interest. And as soon as they show some interest, you can say, I've got something that I'm not going to show you.
It's all behind the curtain.
It's all behind the curtain. And if you really want it, you have to give us all your details, and then we can pester the life out of you. And so it's become a mess in terms of what it should be, what it can be. And I think that there's that fear factor that, well, if we do all of this, what's going to happen? We're not proactively going out to get business. You think, well, imagine if you halved your sales team. Let's be brutally honest about this. If you became better at producing content and you were creating great content, your content's staying out there for 1, 2, 3 years.
But what sort of content are you talking about then? What kind of things do they need to be producing that would attract potential customers to them?
It needs to. If you look at thought leadership, we talk about thought leadership, we talk about a long-form piece of information that explains and teaches and shows and demonstrates what your product or your perception of doing something will do for somebody else. And you can't say that in a couple of paragraphs. You say, and these are the bullets, and these are a numbered list, and here's a video about it, and here's a diagram, and here's the research that we've done about it. It takes time. It could take someone 2 or 3 days to write a long form, even a week. So what? It stays on your website for 3 years. It could be produced, posted, referenced on Google Search Console when it's active. It's off at the moment, but they've just brought out Google Analytics 4, so then that's going to enhance things to do with engagement, customer engagement. It's a big factor. But so you produce this information, and because it's relevant, because it's not me saying it's relevant, Google says it's relevant. Google says, oh, it's written well, it's easy to read, it's laid out properly, it's got the right format of large title and next size down, H1, 2, 3 titles, bullet lists, numbered lists, like I said, videos and graphics and graphs and so on. Google says this is a good document, this is well written, this has got the right balance of words that relate to each other, which show that this is an intelligent piece of information. I'm going to put you on page 1. Bingo. That you don't need anything other than that. Yet the marketers are going, well, firstly, we can't write it. Secondly, we don't write it. Thirdly, we're using marketing automation and pay-per-click, so we're not going to do that anyway. Why would we do that? As opposed to saying, well, wait a second. If you've got all those points of failure with your pay-per-click, you've got no point of failure with this. Here it is. We're giving you this information. We want to help you learn and understand about it. And if you're interested, there's a link here to the product that we sell.
And what about video and podcasts?
Well, this is the one. Although I talked about writing, if you apply the same approach, not intellect, but the same approach to anything that you produce, so you've got long form written, long form as an explainer video, showing them and showing animated whatever, and then things like this, like discussing a whatever it is on a podcast.
But while you're on that, do you think there's a paradigm blockage there? So, for instance, a lot of sales organisations or a lot of sales processes, they want to control the show and tell. They want to control that conversation of, oh, what's your problem? Let me tell you the answer. Let me talk you through it. What challenges do you want to know? And therefore, I believe there's a lot of people that go, well, I don't want that on the website. I want to control that conversation. I don't want them to see the demo when I'm not physically there. I don't want them to go through the FAQs.
Completely agree with you. And that's where, that's not a problem, sir. And we've got the statistics for that. It's 20, 30, 50 and 70, because it's business like that, businesses like yours that keep going bust. Sorry to be harsh, but true.
Yeah, I think that's a major factor.
And businesses don't, they want to be in control of it, instead of saying, well, what if you didn't have to worry about it? And you go, well, the reason I worry about it, mate, is because I've got so many staff. You go, yeah. And I mentioned this before. It's like, what I can't do is go back in time and step in and have a chat with you when you decided to set up the company. I can't do that. But say we did do something like that. So right at the beginning, the inception of the company is to say, right, what you need to do is write about what you're going to sell, write about what the business is going to do, explain in detail, get it posted, put it on a website. Even do some pay-per-click, but not for marketing automation. Do some pay-per-click that will just see if you can get in front of certain groups of people that you want to sell this product to. So far, all you've done is sat there and write. You haven't started the business yet. You can write a long-form piece of content. You can do 10. You can post them up, do some advertising. It's not going to cost you anything unless someone clicks on it. Oh, we've got loads of people clicking on it. Well, I tell you what, start the company. Happy days. You're in front already. Unfortunately, where everybody is there actually multiple steps behind that. They've manufactured the product. They've done everything they need. The top reason, not excuse, the top reason that startups go bust is because of a lack of market. Doesn't exist.
No one wants it.
So if we take that and look at multiple businesses, how big is the market for you, and have you got the nous within your team to actually identify your market and sell to those people? Do they know you exist, and are you good at selling to those people? And you go, well, that's why I've got you. I've got a marketing person to go and do that. No, that's not the answer. Did you have them there in the first place, or was it your mum and your mates and everyone else saying, oh, it's a lovely idea, definitely go into business, I'm so proud of you? It's like, and people that are going on your website are clicks from everywhere around the world except the UK, which is where you got your business. It's like, so what? They're not going to come over here and buy from you. So if you haven't established who your market is and who people, who that target market are going to be, and that they want your product, don't do it.
And it's such a cost-effective way, because a lot of business owners I speak to, they'd happily pay for a meeting. Because I see it time and time again, the key metric is new business meetings.
Yeah.
And they'd pay you for a new business meeting, yet they wouldn't pay you, or they wouldn't pay Google for a click for them to read the pitch.
I know. It's just, but it's because
and obviously we haven't really touched on copywriting yet, but copy is sales in writing.
Yeah.
So if you do it correctly and you lay out the content correctly, they're actually getting the pitch.
Yeah.
The one that you was going to pay for to go and turn up in your suit, you could have done that at scale for pence to the pound to actually test your idea.
Yeah. And this is, I think this is the problem, is that it's got messed up. It really has genuinely got messed up. So we've got those businesses that started that have a potential problem, that they may or may not have the market that they want. It's either not big enough or they can't access it for whatever reason. But say, for example, you need to go broad, you need to go to a wider audience. How do you do it? You've got to. There are mechanisms to do it within marketing and whatever you're going to do. But in order to reach them properly without having to travel there, which normally would cost you money, you've got to make sure that all of that information and intellectual property is available at the click of a button. So not even to make a transition, you're not going to dump everything that you're doing right now. You're going to go, well, okay, if businesses are aware of what they can do it in parallel. Cost you next to nothing, just takes you time, but do it in parallel. Write your content. Learn about what content's required. Start looking at the video side, start looking at the podcast side, looking at the live side, doing live. The cost of technology is like pennies. You just got to have someone there to do it. But it costs pennies. And you might not have a big audience to begin with, so what? Do it.
But you need one.
No, you don't. You only need a deal a week or whatever the deal.
Yeah, because you're only trying to talk to people you want to sell to.
Yeah.
And unless you're used to getting 1,000 leads a week. I mean, how many people do you really need to speak to? And
this is about niche, and you go back to the whole thing about the internet. The reason the boom and then bust happened in 2000 was because the marketers that believed that they were still broadcasting, the same as television, radio. They thought that they were broadcasting, and the way that they spoke to people, the way they presented everything was based upon a broadcast message. Then it went bust, and they kind of sat back and thought, well, that's a bit of a worry. Maybe we should do it a bit differently. I started to realise, wait a second, people have got these screens in front of them. This is one-to-one. The phones, they're personal phones. This is one-to-one. Oh, we might have to change this. And so it became a one-to-one message instead of a one-to-many. And that's how it started to change. And so as it stands now, what they have to do is to work out a way of blending what they've got, losing part of what they've got. Get rid of it. It's costing you a fortune. Get rid of it. Or change it, adapt it to producing great content. And, you've got people that need to do interviews. You want to interview your customers. You want to interview your suppliers. You want to interview people that do events, even if they are virtual, doesn't matter. But you've got to have people that are prepared to do interviews, people that are prepared to write, people that are prepared to present like they are in front of a camera. You know, like we've seen on television for the past however many decades people have seen. But it's to shift what you do and present yourself to a point where people can look at your business and go, I like them. They're talking to me. They talk my language. They're talking to me. We have learnt so much from them. I'll buy from them.
I do think, I mean, Dean and I were talking about this just before, is that, you know, we've been doing the traditional way of doing things for such a long time. And the traditional way of doing things was has become like the marketing automation, or it's become doing telesales or whatever. But, you know, if you think about it, 12 months ago, we would never have thought that we would be where we are now.
No.
As in that we've had a lockdown, people have been quarantined, you know, it's a global phenomena and all of it. So 12 months ago, we were just pootling along doing our thing and everything was as it should be. And then everything changed in March. So certainly in the UK, it changed in March. And so now we've got this new normal. So if you can't now reach people in their offices because they're predominantly working from home, if it's B2B, then you're going to have to reconsider your business model. You're going to have to reconsider how you generate your business, because you can't do it the way you were doing it before. Yeah. And so you're going to have to, you talk about paradigms, I think you're going to have to, you know, businesses are going to have to break out of that. Well, we can manage, you know, we understand telesales because we understand it's a fairly easy thing to do. It's not complicated. You sit somebody on the phone, you give them a list of numbers to call, they call the numbers, they go through a list, they tick it off and they do callbacks and all. That's really, really easy and basic. Doing a video is really quite difficult. We don't know how to do that. And that's why we've been talking about helping businesses build up that collateral, helping them produce their videos, produce their podcasts, producing their content, because this is where
I can see what you're doing there.
This is where you're
turning it back. You're bringing it back. You're bringing it back to the business.
Because this is where it's going. You know, and we have to accept. I mean, it's not just, you know, it's not just us that have to accept it. I think it is businesses have to accept that things have changed beyond all recognition. Yeah. And because businesses have changed beyond all recognition, maybe our business models need to change in step with that. Yeah. And there's going to be a bit of a lag. But if we don't start producing the content, if we don't start producing the videos and the podcasts and doing the proper, the good quality content, you know, because even if somebody, you know, and I know this for a fact, so even if you fill in a form, you know, somebody fills in a form and they say, yeah, this is my job, you know, I'm the chief financial officer, this is my number, but you don't want anybody really to call you, but that's the only way you can get this business. So you give the office number. So the office number's on the form, and then that person that receives it at the supplier end grabs it, oh, I've got a number to call. And they phone that number, and the person that answers the phone says, yeah, he's working from home. Well, have you got a contact number? No, sorry, I can't give you a number. Can you not transfer me? No, sorry, I can't transfer you from here. If you've got his email address, he can ignore you on that.
And he'll ignore you very well on it.
Yeah.
But the point is, we have to start shifting away from that, because less and less people are available. I mean, I read somewhere that I think Google, Facebook, and maybe it was Twitter, they have said now that people are not going to be in the office until like March 2021. That's another 6 months. Now, I know not everybody's adopting that, but there are companies that are saying, do you know what, we've been functioning really quite well outside of the office.
Yeah.
So let's stay outside the office. But I think
kind of toying with that whole process, that if you've got these businesses, they've got most of their staff working from home, and even if they are if people are going into an office, it's at a reduced level. Yeah. And so because of what we're doing, you know, that we have kind of four specific elements. One of them is writing. There is a specific structure to create written content that is meaningful and logical and measurable. We take care of that. We do that. When it comes to video, you need a place to shoot stuff, unless it needs, and depending on what it is. And it's not just a corporate. We're not talking corporate video. We're talking about video that explains and educates, thought leadership and informative and so on, and humanises a business. So therefore, it's not your corporate flashy stuff. If you want corporate flashy stuff, we'll get James Cameron, or we'll get Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg. You can spend millions and millions and millions. They come and do your corporate video. But when it comes to humanising your business, it needs to be done in a certain way. And we do that. So we'll take care of all of that, start to finish, all the filming, all the editing, all the production, everything else. We've got another part, which is doing this. This is podcasting. We'll come to your offices, or we go to their offices. We'll set the podcasting equipment up, set up sound blankets so we get good sound like we've got now, record everything, post everything, make it happen. We'll do the interviewing, we do the hosting, we do all of it to get you moving. Even when it comes to live, doing live shows and posting live shows on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. We'll set it up, post it up, manage it, do everything, start to finish. Whether a company wants to go and do it themselves, it's entirely up to them. And we'll teach you how to do that as well. If you want to do it yourself, we'll train you. We'll do all of it. But the point I'm putting across at the moment is that there's a lot to take on board. There's a lot to grasp, and unless you've been doing this before, which, well, we know people don't. You need someone to come in and just start making it happen, and that's what we do. We'll make it all happen. We've approached this in an unusual way, I think, because we did the white paper. It wasn't just the white paper. It would take somebody about 2 weeks to read everything and listen and watch everything on the website, give or take. There's a lot of information on there. And it was put together to help business owners understand what was required and what they would have to do if they wanted to go and do it. And now, because of the extent and timescales and everything else, we're now doing this as a service. We're offering this as a service. So that's kind of the bit of pitch in a way of this is what we do. We do all of it. The whole thing to do with content we'll put together. But the difference with us compared to, I would say, any other company is that we've all sold technology. We've all been involved in the sales process and the management and the structure of implementation.
Yeah, our background is business rather than...
So it's not wearing the flowery shirts, doing all the arty stuff, but we're good at that. Yeah. We're creative at that. But the point is, it's our background and foundation is selling kit. It's selling product. It's selling B2B, and that's why we're obviously at a special place, or an important place to be able to provide that for businesses. So it's a mess out there. It is genuinely a mess out there. People are still being fired at a regular pace. You just have to look at the numbers of jobs that are available and are being posted for marketing. So there's not been any slowdown in people being fired because people are gagging for new business now. It's like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with the business? If we've got to get a new marketing person because the person we've got at the moment, he's no good. We've got to get someone else in. Surely, and they're saying, right, and here's the 4-page job description. It's like they're never going to do that. And yet, this is just a continuation of all the previous stuff. What makes you think that they're going to be able to do anything different, or even more kind of cutting to the bone, or whatever the expression is? What puts an HR person or a recruitment consultant in a position to recommend someone when they've never ever done the job before in their lives, but they're recommending, take on this person, here's their CV? Because
that salespeople, unfortunately, are rather more dispensable because you can train knowledge, you can train product knowledge into a salesperson.
Yeah.
And as long as they've kind of got, they're not horrible and when they go to clients or whatever.
You weren't looking at me when you said that, were you?
No, I wasn't. I was looking past you, Dean. I was looking past you. But, you can train product knowledge into somebody. So even if, you put out a job ad that says, they need knowledge of this industry, you do, but you don't, because that kind of comes with time. But the thing is with marketing people, you are putting so much of your emphasis and you're hoping so fervently that marketing person is going to be able to deliver on all of those things that you put in that job description, because one of those things...
I've got to cut in. So I read one and it said, basically, we want you to be a Nobel Peace Prize winner. We wanted you to be
not so many words.
We want you to be absolutely everything, and we want you to mentor everybody else in a team of 15. Right? You've got to be their mentor, teach and train them. Yeah. So you've got to do everything. And the best bit of it, last sentence, and you'll report to the CMO.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second.
Who, if you can do it, is now on a deck chair on the beach.
So now the CMO is now the person that's recruiting these people to say, well, it's not my job, it's not my fault. They were the ones that screwed up, not me.
But just going back to the job description, though, so if they're putting all of their emphasis on producing these job descriptions, and they're getting longer and longer, it's because I think they don't know what bit of this, if any of it, actually works.
Yeah, 100%.
So basically what they're doing, they're going, right, okay, well, they've got to do pay-per-click because we've always done pay-per-click, so we better do that and blah, blah, blah. And then they've got to be able to do PR because we're not sure if PR works, but they've got to be able to do that. And so they just keep adding to this. And as technology comes out, they just add a little bit more and a little bit, because actually they don't know which bit, if any of that, really works. So if they leave something out, they're so terrified that the bit that they leave out...
And they say, you've got to know marketing automation. And they go, and have used Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot, Acton, and this and that and the other one. And you go, well, any or all of the above is good, as long as you've got some kind of idea about... Really?
But if you think about it, those pages and pages in that job description, and you just think, wow. But it's because they don't know which bit, if any of that...
I think this is why we're urging people to really read the white paper, because I feel for people who are hiring marketing. I really do, because they're out of their depth, if I'm honest. Yeah. They might not want to admit it because, they're in charge of their business, they're in charge of their company, and they're in charge of the vision and the future. But it's such an expansive area. And, Nigel's already talked quite extensively on videos, podcasting, content, and... individually, it's all tools and tactics, but how do you know which tool and tactic you need? And if you're in a business at the moment and you're floundering, you're probably thinking, well, that all sounds a little bit extreme and a bit enterprise, blue chip level. Well, what's the minimum effective dose to get me going? Yeah. Like, where do I start? Where do I begin? Yeah. And in terms of where do I start, where do I begin, who do I actually need to hire? Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is exactly why I think people need to start digesting the white paper and really get an understanding of the strategy. And it's a little bit why I keep banging on about, well, why do you want it in the first place? Because once you're really clear on all the steps, the tools and tactics slot into place. And you can all, like you say, you don't have to have them all from day one, but you do have to have the ones that you desperately need in order to be able to sell.
And I think the thing with the white paper is what we're saying is just read it, because then you'll have multiple aha moments and go, finally, I've got I can cut through the crap. Yeah. I can cut through all this nonsense. I get it now, and I can do this bit by bit. I can do it in a state. I know why it's all required, but I don't have to do it all at once. I can do it gradually. Tie up, if you've got a big budget, great, you've got a budget, but it has to be right. Yes, you do need long form content, but there's a reason for it. It's for Google to send people to you. It's not just to say, oh, well, I've got a copyright, it's going to cost you a fortune, whatever. You write it. Your salespeople, not you, Dean, but the customer salespeople, Get your salespeople to write it, for goodness sake. If they're qualified enough to sit in front of a customer for an hour and not take a breath, they can write it.
Yeah. And if they can get in front of a customer and you trust them in front of a customer, get them in front of a camera.
100%. 100%. And this is about looking at it's lots of things are right with companies, but it's a bit. It was a long time ago. It was Morecambe and Wise, and they were with Andre Previn. Those of a certain age will remember this. And Morecambe is playing the piano. He was playing Rachmaninoff, and Andre Previn, who was a really well-known conductor, was getting more and more frustrated with him because it was just awful. And Andre Previn said to him, listen, you're playing all the wrong notes. And Morecambe got hold of him by the scruff by his suit and says, listen, Mush, I'm playing all the right notes, just not necessarily in the right order. And so the point is with marketing is the same thing, is that you've got most of it right, but you've got content, but not enough, and not written properly, and not linked, and not layered. You've got a video, but it's only a corporate video. But you need to communicate this to your customers, not just to your shareholders who want to see that you've got a big office and you tick the box. You've got to do podcasts, because people, a higher percentage of people who are decision makers listen to podcasts. And then you've got live. Who knows? It's just that if you're available to do live and can answer calls live, and people don't have to give their names live, they just say, and what about this, and what about, and you can speak and talk to and communicate and deliver your humanity live for free, why wouldn't you do it?
I think the simplest way is just to get people to sit the other side of the table.
Yeah.
Like, if you was the buyer, how would you buy it? And, and start going through that process, because then even if you're confused and you're, bamboozled by all the options, if you just think like a buyer and go, right, well, the first thing I would do if I wanted a new flux capacitor is I'll put flux capacitor in Google.
Yeah.
Well, now all of a sudden it makes sense that you're banging on about Google, because it's got to appear, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas I think, I do genuinely think there's business owners out there who go, I don't really understand why you're so obsessed with Google. Yeah. And it's like, well, think like a buyer. Let's go backwards a step.
When was the last time you bought something? And this is a genuine thing, because we did buy something. We bought 2 things recently. But, why would you buy something without looking and researching it first? Put yours... And if you know what you want to buy, you might go to Amazon or Argos or wherever. But I always read the reviews, because I'm thinking like a buyer. I'm thinking, I want to know what other people think. I want to know what they say about their own product. Is it good? Is that actually what is real? So when was the last time you made any purchase without looking it up on Google first? Unless
and if you go through the steps,
because we can't browse anymore.
If you've got a marketing team forcing everything down pay-per-click because you've got marketing automation, likelihood is you're failing. It's quite high. It's highly likely you're failing. You go, oh, no. Well, you're still 20, 30, 50, 70% likelihood of going bust anyway. Yeah? So, but if you look at the productivity of marketing automation and go, it doesn't work. You go, okay then, so how much is yours going to cost? Nothing. Time. A little bit of time. Write the stuff. You've got everything. You've got all the intellect, all the intellectual property, everything at your fingertips. Costs nothing to produce it. I've done this. I don't need to do it again. I just do it when it suits. Every time I've written a long-form piece of content, I've got onto page 1 of Google. And not with just using, I'm typing in my title. I've got onto page 1 of Google, because Google recognises it as being a thought leadership piece, long-form and detailed and well-written and so on, straight away. I'm talking minutes. So it's not about, well, I don't know, Google just doesn't find us. Absolute rubbish. There is a definitive structure to get found, and why and how. So therefore, our way has better and more exposure than yours on pay-per-click and marketing automation platforms. And now it's kind of gone from, since 2008 when they first came out, which everybody wanted to have them, to now it's like, prove why you should have it. Nothing wrong with having a mechanism to send something to someone if they want it, if they really want it. but you've got to know the alternatives and what the alternatives are. And if nobody is talking to you or proffering an alternative to pay-per-click and marketing automation and a couple of blogs here and there and next to nothing else really, then that's the problem.
But I think now if you look at it, it's content is driving everything. So you've got Google and having those long form blogs. YouTube, there's so many searches done on YouTube, so that means you've got to start producing video so that you can have a YouTube channel and promote your YouTube channel because people are looking at YouTube.
Yeah.
More and more people are listening to podcasts. So if you're not in the podcast space, how many people are you? How many?
Spotify just put half a billion, 500,000 into podcasts, and also just paid Joe Rogan 1.2 million for his, or it's 100 million.
Yeah, 100 million.
Paid him 100 million to shift his podcast, his videoed podcast from YouTube to Spotify. 100 million. He's got a nice house now.
I bet he has.
No kidding. But this is the point, and it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, it's so much work involved. You go, okay, do you want to go bust? I said, that's as simple as that. If you don't change, if you don't shift, then you're going to go bust. You're going to experience all the stress. I know exactly what stress is like. Been there, got all the t-shirts and the scars. So then the choice is do nothing, stay the same, go bust, or shift, redevelop your model to something that can be operated from home, away from, or remotely, everything remotely. Expand what you're doing, grow the business, drive more traffic to the information that you have. Happy days. What if you're still looking at your business right now saying, well, it doesn't matter if we go back to the office or not, everything's working the way it should do. We just need more business because we can function the way that we do because of the type of product that we have. I mean, for some it's unfortunate, but if you've got a range of products that are still being sold and everything can be managed remotely, but you still need to get on top of attracting more business, then happy days. Let's talk.
It makes absolute sense. Like I say, when you go through the buying journey and you really understand, and it all sort of clicks into place, and you get those aha moments, all of a sudden the clouds disappear and you go, right, I get it now. And I think that's what we're trying to achieve with the white paper. We're trying to just take away the fog, because I do feel for business owners. I can see exactly why it's so complicated, but it doesn't need to be.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm getting looks. I'm getting these looks that there's, we've this is an hour and 25 minutes. Our listener could think, well, these guys can talk forever. But I think we should cut. We can. We have. We've spoken for hours and hours and hours. But I think what we'll do, we'll call it a day. We'll call it a day today. Thanks for joining me. Us, me, you
it's
two,
been a pleasure.
both of you.
Thanks for inviting me. I don't get invited out much these days.
I know there's a lot going on.
None of us get out much these
Glad
days.
to see you wearing your mask. And so we'll say, well, thanks for that. Good talk, good chat. Until the next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.